So you have 2 degrees, is that right, from institutions in the
Yeah.
UK? Yeah.
Yes.
So what led you to pursue education across the pond, as we say? And can you talk a little bit about how your time in the UK, what that's meant to you and your career?
Definitely meant more than I could have ever expected professionally. But here's the funny thing. I think you're going to really start to see a pattern about my behavior, which is that things that scare me, I force myself to do. So I studied abroad in the UK. I studied abroad 3 times when I was at Princeton. And the third time was a semester for my junior year at the Royal College of Music in London for voice, actually. Even at that time, I was just starting to get the confidence to tell people that I like to compose. So I went into the practice room in London and I would compose every day instead of practicing my Italian arias. So I think that was the sign of what's to come.
Love it.
Um, I had kind of a tough time in that semester. Partially like big city, it was not small town, but like suburbanite girl in a big city,
Yeah.
very overwhelmed by like navigating the tube and stuff, which is so funny when I look back. And also, I think culture shock for sure. Britain is different, and there are a lot of things I love about the UK, but they have a different relationship with race. And I think I encountered some of that particularly because I was younger and more naive about it, maybe at that time. So I actually it wasn't necessarily my favorite time that I had there. I think I struggled. I think I grew a lot, but I definitely struggled. So it's kind of funny when I look back, like, why did I decide to also go to grad school there? Like,
Yeah.
this one experience I had. And I love the US, so why didn't I stay for grad school? But 2 things, I got an amazing opportunity with funding to go over there. And the second thing was that I felt that I hadn't necessarily explored all the hues of British life. So the first thing I did is I researched this program in ethnomusicology at SOAS, University of London. Now, SOAS is a very different institution from the Royal Music Schools. It's the acronym, we use the acronym because its full name is slightly problematic, School of Oriental and African Studies. But I guess, that what it stands for means something slightly different also in the context of Britain and that school, because it's a school really committed to decolonizing. And it's really a fantastic institution. The professors there are all dedicated to that. So what was really cool was for me to go study Indian classical music, something I knew as a practitioner, from the perspective of an academic institution that is committed in the 21st century to decolonizing and really questioning British colonial legacy, but was actually originally founded as a school to train colonial officers to be better at colonizing. That's its original founding. The library is one of the best in the world because they have all these resources that have made their way, or some might say were stolen. I mean, you can take umbrage in a lot of senses, but the school is very aware of their history and very aware of raising the next generation of really deeply thinking activists are a lot of the attendees. So the music department within that school, you couldn't even take a class in Western classical music there. Super interesting setting. People, like, the closest thing you're going to get is that there's a piano in the music practice rooms, but everyone's using them for like Cuban jazz. Like, no one is using them for their Western classical canon rep. So that was super cool to be exposed to, even though I was pretty sure that I wasn't going to go on to do a PhD in ethnomusicology or anything like that, just to, again, make me that kind of thinking artist. I think it was really fantastic. And then I went on the other end of the spectrum for my composition degree, which was back at a conservatory. But this time I chose Manchester for that, Royal Northern College of Music. Manchester is a super cool city, very different from London, very different history when it comes to the northern part of England. And the school also has like a pop music department in there
Okay,
too.
yeah.
So like popular genres, essentially. So their attitude towards composition was also very expansive, even within the conservatory. So I definitely got to flavor of all these different places. I will say, though, professionally, that was not my expectation when I went to the UK. Like, I was just there to study and kind of, again, immerse my brain in all these different things, and then come back and kind of try to figure out what's next. I didn't have a huge plan. I was thinking maybe a PhD program, whatever I could do to delay working in the real world was kind of the plan. So what I didn't expect was getting to like make the connections professionally that I would now. I go on to visit the UK pretty often. I would say that a fair amount of my projects are UK based too, even to this day. So what happened when I was there was that another grad student at Princeton, actually, Ninfea Cretwell-Reed, whose work you might know, is a fantastic composer. She sat me down a few weeks before graduation and said, I heard you're going to the UK. I'm also moving back there. And, what schemes are you applying for? I was like,
Mm.
scheme? Like,
Right.
that sounds like nefarious. Or, what does that mean? And she couldn't believe that I was like so disorganized that I had not even looked into a single composition opportunity there. I thought I just had more to learn, that I wasn't ready to be composing out in the world. Again, all these artificial limits I was putting on myself. And she sent me a couple schemes, and all of them I applied for and I did. And those were incredible because it's a smaller country in a way. The classical music scene is, I think, easier to enter than it is professionally in the US. I think we just have so many centers here, which is cool because then you can be making music where you are and I can be making music where I am. And neither of us have to be living all the time in New York, for example, to be making music. That's a huge positive. But over there, it's just so closely linked that for a long time after, every opportunity I was getting was directly the result of one of those 3 schemes that I did in the UK, which is kind of mind-boggling if you think
Yeah.
about it. Like this person knows this person.
Right. And when you say the word schemes, because this is like a word I came across at a certain point where it's like schemes, what does that mean? But that's like call for scores and
Yeah,
opportunities like that.
they're like mentorship programs or early career composer programs, basically, and they just call it a scheme. I still don't know why that's the word, but program might be a better sense. I kind of thought of them as apprenticeships. That was my
Yeah.
attitude towards them. And so I think because I was studying full time, it was like also great for me to have this outlet, and I was, in a privileged place where I could do an apprenticeship because I had a funded program that I was in through the Marshall Scholarship that allowed me to basically be doing, say non-paid work, for example, if that's the nature of the scheme, which isn't always the case for artists. So again, deeply lucky in that sense. And that's something we have to, I guess, examine going forward with these, even though these programs are fantastic, how can we support people during them if they're going to do those programs full time? But they were, yeah, I mean, it was wild that if I look back at my first several commission opportunities, they were all as a result of something with that scheme, with one of those 3 schemes that I did. So one was a choral scheme with the National Youth Choirs of Great Britain.
And that's how
Um,
I think that was my first encounter with your music,
yes,
actually.
it was one
Yeah.
of the songs that
I
was
was gonna ask
released.
about that. Yeah.
Yeah, so we wrote this. I wrote a couple songs for them, and they released, and they made an album at the end of it. I mean, how lucky is that for composers to get professional recordings of what they've created? Another scheme was with this amazing new music group called Safa in Manchester, which has encouraged so many people with their Compose 4 schemes, where they would get like 24 people in a year. They would give these to, which is a lot of people. And then there was a scheme with the Royal Scottish National Orchestra too. So, which was, also a great opportunity to get to work with orchestra. So yeah, these are just, they're just available for people to apply to, even if you're not British, for example. So that
Oh,
was,
wow.
that was so cool. Yeah.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Micromaker by Loose Leaf Transmissions. We hope you enjoyed this brief glimpse into the inner workings of the creative life. If this resonated with you, be sure to check out the full conversation on Music Maker with Tyler Klein, a podcast exploring craft and process, philosophy and inspiration, and the honest, often messy parts of being an artist, creative uncertainty, purpose and identity, and resilience. You can find Music Maker wherever you get your podcasts or by visiting musicmakerpodcast.com.